If you've already won the game, why stay on the field? This is something that trips up so many retirees. This decision, this really fork in the road that you're going to have to decide to choose which direction is best for you and your family. So I've created some talking points here. You're going to see me glancing down. A lot of my videos I'll just kind of freestyle and talk, but I really want to hit some important points with this in particular topic. So what do I mean? If you've already won the game, why are you still playing? Let me paint you a picture. You've tucked away money for 30, 40 years. We're going to use $1 million because it's a round number and it's easy math. You've got your Social Security. You've got your spouse's Social Security. You've got your $1 million 401k. Okay, here's where we are. You live well, you live comfortably, you question whether or not you'll even need that money or how much of it you'll need. Okay? Here's the decision. The typical advice is draw your Social Security, withdraw 4% from your $1 million IRA, we'll say in this case, which is $40,000. 4% of $1 million, $40,000 bucks. You got your Social Security, you got your $40,000 withdrawal from your $1 million. The goal is to continue to grow that $1 million, leave it invested. That's typical. My sincere curiosity is, why is that the typical route? Why do folks work 30, 40 years? Now, when we say 30 or 40 years, I mean that doesn't give it justice, right? I'm right in the thick of it. I've got 4 children, 7, 4, 3, 1. I work, my wife works. We run a household. What I'm getting at here is that 30 to 40 years, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of nights. It's a long time. It's a large chunk of your life. And I say that to kind of help people understand what's going on here when you're 62, 64, 65, and you're going to retire, right? This has been a long journey. 5% of Americans make it to 90. So if you're 65, you're in the latter third of your life, okay? So I've talked about this in another way I've called 0 to 60, the accumulation phase. And 60 to 90 is the latter third, okay? So if you're 65, you're in that window. So let me get through these talking points here. So the way I approached this was trying to figure out, why do people actually do this 30-year grind, tucking away money in the 401k, being diligent, saving and investing all these years for retirement, aka stop working, enjoy life, enjoy relationships. Maybe that means different things to different people. You've got $1 million. You've got plenty of money. You've got plenty of money, but you're going to leave it invested in the market, where you can run into things like sequence of returns risk. You can lose. I mean, we've seen, if you're 65, you've seen your investment be cut in half before. You've been through the dot-com bubble. You've been through 2008 mortgage crisis. You've been through things. And nobody can predict when that'll happen again, but if that happened in your first 5 or 10 years of retirement, it's a major problem. It's not a little thing, it's a major thing. So, all right. This is something I genuinely wrestle with, and I want to understand the other side. If there is another side, I'd like to understand it a little better. People save for 30 or 40 years, they finally hit $1 million, and then they're told to keep it invested, pull 4% a year, and hope that the market cooperates. Now, obviously, an advisor probably doesn't say, well, let's hope that the market cooperates, right? That's not what you're told, but that's what you're doing. Because you don't know when it goes up, you don't know when it goes down, you don't know. It's very unpredictable. What we know is over the course of time, history says the markets go up. We also know there's a lot of fluctuation in there. Now, at this particular time, we're not in the accumulation anymore. We're in the latter third of life. What is important to you? What do you want to do the next 30 years of your life? Do you want to be on a roller coaster financially? And here's the key. There's nuance. It's not all or nothing. Can you be wise about this? Can you be prudent? Can you leave a certain amount on the roller coaster? Can you take part of it, put it into guaranteed income to go along with your Social Security? Can you raise the floor of your retirement and then still leave a healthy amount at risk for growth, for future, for other things? I think that's the ideal. So let's get into this here. All right. The question, I think I've kind of established what my perspective is and my question here, but we'll go a little bit deeper into this. If someone already has enough to retire comfortably, why would they keep it all exposed to market risk? Why not lock in part of that success with guaranteed income and let the rest safely grow, as I kind of alluded to? But there are, and this is the opposite framework that I'm operating from. There are very smart, diligent, successful people who do the opposite, who argue the opposite of what I'm saying. So I would love feedback. All right, argument number one. This is the strongest opposing argument, which to me, I can answer it and kind of take care of it rather quickly. But argument number one is inflation is the long-term enemy. Markets aren't just about greed, right? So this person retires, they got $1 million, they want to leave it all invested. It doesn't just mean that, oh, well, they're greedy. You know, they could be thinking, hey, inflation is the real long-term enemy. Markets aren't just about greed, they're about keeping purchasing power, okay? If you fully de-risk too early, right, that means you're too conservative, you put everything into guaranteed income, inflation slowly erodes your lifestyle, even if your income feels stable today. Growth isn't about getting richer, it's about not getting poorer quietly. All right, so that's the first argument. And I'm not necessarily gonna go through and answer every single argument, but the inflation one, I mean, I just helped a woman do this. So we set up a personal pension for her about 3 years ago. It's gonna pay her about $25,000 a year, in addition to her Social Security, in addition to her husband's Social Security. They're gonna have more income throughout retirement than she did when she was working full time. So their income is super strong. They're already gonna have more income than they're used to having. So that helps with inflation right off the rip. But then what we did even further was we took a couple buckets of money, one through a partial pension surrender, which she had through her employer, and then another little part of a 401k. And we just delayed those. We say, hey, we deferred these. What happens when you defer a personal pension? The principal's not at risk. You're getting a roll-up rate. Boom. And it depends on who's got the best rates at the time, but 8%, 8.25% it might be. It might be 10% simple interest. But there's a credit to this pension account. Every year you defer it, the lifetime income goes up. What are we doing by doing that? Well, we're countering inflation. We're protecting purchasing power. And another caveat with these personal pensions, in this particular case, her husband had some health issues. And at some point, we're seeing, okay, there could be some risk for healthcare needs. You might have to have someone come out and help take care of him in 10 years, 15 years. These personal pensions have a benefit to where that monthly payout will double if one of the two spouses loses 2 of their 6 ADLs, activities of daily living. That's bathing, feeding, dressing, toileting, right? The basics. So if they lose 2 of those 6, that income doubles. pretty powerful way to protect against another big risk, which is getting sick, taking care of your spouse. Okay, so inflation, you don't have to have market exposure. I think market exposure is good, so I don't want to say don't have any. I'm saying you don't need to have too much. You don't need to have everything exposed to the market to counter inflation. There are ways to do that based on guarantees. What do I mean by guarantees? Minimum contractual written agreements. It's guaranteed. So that's argument number one. Inflation is the long-term enemy. Argument number two, flexibility beats guarantees for some people. To me, this is more of a legitimate argument. Still, in the case that we're looking at, 2 Social Security incomes, $1 million 401k. Do you need $1 million in flexible liquid? Do you need to be able to access up to $1 million? I still think you could take a portion of this and carve off some of your retirement and add it to the guaranteed bucket to bring that floor up. I heard a guy say years ago, this guy was a very wealthy man, multi-millionaire. I don't know how many millions he had, but enough to have a plane and enough to have a house in Miami and a house in North Carolina and a cabin in North Carolina, and very, very, successful from a monetary standpoint. And he said, there's not a lot of problems that, $25,000, $30,000 doesn't fix. So he worded that differently. He said, $25,000, $30,000, that handles a lot of problems. A lot of things that pop up, $25,000, $30,000 handles it. So I say that because now, you could argue, you could think of things that are more expensive, of course. This is probably 10 years ago I heard him say this. So maybe it's not 30,000 anymore. Maybe it's 45,000 with inflation. But the point is, do we need $1 million accessible at any time? Well, let's look back on your life. Whether you were in the trades or you were a corporate executive or you were a teacher and you were just a tremendous investor. When's the last time you needed $250,000 and you had to come up with it quick? When's the last time you needed that kind of liquid outside of a 20% down on a house, helping your children put something down on a house, or college education? When's the last time you needed that much liquid? So flexibility beats guarantees. Money in the market stays liquid. You can change withdrawals, rebalance, pause spending, or take advantage of opportunities. Guaranteed income can trade flexibility for certainty. Some retirees value optionality more than certainty. Okay. Just kind of talked about that a little bit. But yeah, if you go the guaranteed route, that's pretty accurate. You're going to have a little bit, there's some flexibility, but you're going to have less flexibility and a lot more certainty. So if you're somebody that really likes optionality at 65 years old in the latter third of your life, I would want to drill down with you on that and say, okay, well, what are we talking about here? Optionality, this is $1 million. It took you 65 years to accumulate this. And it's huge, it's all you got. Outside of Social Security, this is all you got. So how important is the 100% of the account staying flexible? How important is that to you? And why? Do you have any plans? I would drill down on that, but I think that's fairly accurate. The guaranteed income route, you trade in some flexibility, some optionality for a heck of a lot more certainty. Argument 3, longevity risk cuts both ways. So what if you live to be 95 or 100? If you lock too much of your nest egg into income early, you may cap upside that could have supported healthcare, family needs, or lifestyle changes. Growth assets can act like a long duration hedge against living longer than expected. Okay. So, kind of the same point with inflation. And I mentioned the example I helped a lady earlier. We did this with guarantees. We took, we had a personal pension. We had 2 additional buckets of money. We're delaying for 5 years and 10 years. That's written in sand. Okay, so my client understands, listen, we could turn this income on immediately. You could turn it on next year. If you feel like you need to turn it on in 3 years, 4 years, if you feel like you want to wait, you could wait until your husband passes, where you lose his Social Security, or vice versa, and then turn this on. So there's a lot of flexibility in regards to when you turn on the money. So deferring kind of does the same thing without too much risk to your principal. And the thing is, like, what if you live to be 95 or 100? Like, give you a quick example. I don't think I've talked about this in this video just yet, but we mentioned $1 million. We mentioned the typical rule is if you're leaving it invested, it's the 4% rule. You can Google this, and it's a very well-known financial planning approach. That's $40,000 a year. $1 million, 4% withdrawal, $40,000 a year. Principal is at risk, could go up, could go down. You are hoping the market cooperates. So, yeah, I lost my train of thought right there. What if I live to be 95 or 100? Oh, here it is. So, 4% withdrawal rate on $1 million, 40,000. Well, the personal pension option. Now I'm comparing $1 million to $1 million just for easy comparison, but with a personal pension, it's a financial instrument built to provide you lifelong income. Your investment account is not. It's tremendous for growth. That's how you grew $1 million nest egg. It's not built to pay you income. It's meant as a growth long-term vehicle. Instead, people try to use it as income. They leave it invested, they're withdrawing 4%. So a personal pension would do nearly twice the yield. Right now, they're almost at 8%. So $40,000, now we're talking about $80,000. We're also talking about only netting the same $40,000 income with half the money. So $1 million on the 4% rule, $40,000 a year. You could accomplish the same $40,000 a year on a $500,000 bucket. It's twice the yield because you're leveraging a financial instrument that's built for income. So why I say that with longevity and all this? Because if you're leaving your $1 million at risk, right, for inflation, longevity cuts both ways, you could live to be 95 or 100. Well, in order to yield the same payment from your investment account, your $1 million would have to become $2 million. Every 7 to 10 years, your money in the market should double. So if you're 65, we're talking about an outlook to 75 years old. You'd have to be 75, your $1 million would have to become $2 million for you to withdraw at a 4% rate and get $80,000 when you could have done it at 65 with $1 million. With half the bucket, leveraging the right tool, you could have had that type of yield. So it doesn't, again, make a lot of sense to me. Genuinely, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm not doing a good job of playing the middle ground here. I'm just being sincere and honest. And we all have a lot to learn. I'm always learning, but I'm genuinely curious. So this person leaves their money at risk in the market for 10 years till they're 75. Let's say things go well, it doubles. Now they got $2 million. Okay. Do you know what the average lifespan of a man in America is? 79 to 81. So you're 75, your million became 2 million. You've got 4 to 6 years left. Now maybe you'll live longer. Maybe you live to be 90, 95, 100. But so longevity cuts both ways. Doesn't really hit me because right off the rip, you're yielding twice the amount of money than you would be with the 4% rule. So that doesn't really sway me or make me go back on my heels and say, oh, wow, yeah, there is a strong argument against this. Argument number 4, and we've got 5 total. So argument number 4, behavioral confidence matters. This is a huge deal, okay? This is probably the best argument, okay? So some people are genuinely comfortable with volatility. Who would this be? The person who's read some books on investing, the person who understands that stocks go up 70, 72% of the time, the person that can have $1 million at 65, lose 40% and stay calm and say, all right, my $1 million became 600,000. But you know what? I've only put so much money into this over the years, so I'm still ahead, and I'm going to ride this out. We won't withdraw this year. Maybe we won't withdraw next year. We'll manage this. The person that's that person that's even keel, that can take a punch like that at 65 and say, all is well. Things go up over time. 5 to 6 years, we'll be right back in the ball game. Sure. Some people are genuinely comfortable with volatility. They're strong people. I think those are rare people. I think that those folks who have that much investing background and that much, I'll call it stick-to-itiveness. I made up my own word there. The people that can stick through that and are very comfortable with the markets and how things work, and they can see long-term, okay. They've lived through the crashes, they've stayed invested, they trust the process. If someone won't panic, if they won't panic sell, market exposure may actually be less risky for them. Okay, so if you're that person that can work all their life, you're 2/3 through your life, and at 65 you lose 40% of your $1 million, and your $1 million becomes 600,000 over the course of 7, 8, 12 days. And you can look at your wife and say, hey, or you can look at your husband and say, hey, it's all right. We're going to be fine. And by the way, history says you will be, right? But it would take 4, 5, 6 years to get back to where you already were. So, and we're already in the latter third of your life. So there are people who can stomach it. I totally understand it, and I have a lot of respect for those folks. But I don't really understand how it's good strategically. So, argument number 5, legacy. So, and this kind of has recently changed a little bit with the Secure Act, but legacy. So maybe you want to leave your $1 million in your IRA and grow it aggressively and leave it for legacy. You're thinking about your children. So kids now have to empty out the inherited IRAs within 10 years. It's a blessing. Can also be a burden without the proper planning and without knowing, what's to come. So think about this. If you're 65, you're going to let it grow. Let's say you go to 75. You've now got, say, your $2 million. And you got 2 kids. And you die. Your $2 million goes to the kids. Each of them. So if you're 75, they're probably 50, right? 25 years younger, 20 to 30 years younger than you. Might be 45, 50. They could be in their peak earning years. Now all of a sudden, each of them have to claim an additional $100,000 on their income. What's happening? This is getting chewed up by tax. So this is a blessing, but you can optimize it. This is a good place to look at life insurance, which the death benefit passes tax-free. Simpler to plan with. You know exactly what you're going to get. So a lot of your IRA can be eaten up with taxes if you're passing it to your kids, if they're inheriting it. Okay. Growth inside that window can still be meaningful, especially if years are in peak earning years. Even imperfect legacy vehicles can still serve a purpose if growth is high enough. So that's the fifth argument against guaranteed vehicles, personal pensions, is legacy. Thinking about continuing to grow things long term. So I think one of my favorite things I've heard and learned over the years is, I think Aristotle said excellence is typically in the middle, right? So I loved that. I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about this too, some. And, one of the examples they give is, having courage is actually in the middle. So if you put it on a spectrum, the perfect amount you should have would be courage, right in the middle. You don't want to be fearful. You also don't want to be full-hearted, right? You don't want to run off into battle, frontline soldier, and you're killed in 33 seconds because you were full-hearted. Not quite courageous, borderline, not smart. So middle is generally where excellence is. Why do I say that? Because all these arguments, right, they're good points. They're good points to look at. You don't want to do either. You don't want to be on either extremes. But what I see typically is people are on the extreme. The extreme being, all right, got my Social Security, got my $1 million 401k, gonna leave it all invested, withdraw 4% a year. To me, that's being full-hearted. When there's a little bit more of a prudent way to go about it, I'll give you an example. What if, instead of withdrawing 4% from your $1 million and getting $40,000, what if you carved off half of that? And now with the same 500,000, right now we got two piles of 500,000. One of the piles we're going to utilize for guaranteed lifetime income. It's a financial instrument built for income. Investment is built for growth long term. This is built for income. Twice the yield, 4% on 500,000. You get 8%. Twice the yield, 8% on the 500,000. There's your 40,000. What about the other 500, Kyle? Let it ride. Let it ride. To me, that would be more in the middle. That would be more diligent. That would be more prudent. You're getting the 40,000 based on guarantees. How does that work? Pays $40,000 for the rest of the husband's life. If the husband dies, the wife continues to receive the 40,000. If the wife dies, the husband continues to receive the 40,000. If they both die, the principal plus any interest goes to the children. It's pretty sweet. With this with what I'm calling the middle ground approach, what I think would be more near excellence, the 500,000, we're using this for retirement. Man, we saved $1 million. It's our time to retire. We want to spoil the grandkids. We want to have more than what Social Security is going to give us. We want to fly out to Texas and see the kids any darn time I want. We don't want to live, smaller than needed. We're going to utilize some of this nest egg that we've saved. $40,000 on that. The other 500, let it ride. Then you can handle the growth. Then you take a 30% hit. More people can handle that. More people can stomach that. And even the folks that could stomach, as I mentioned before, taking a hit on your $1 million nest egg. And let's say you're the rare person that can stomach that, stay calm, cool, collected, and understand that you're going to ride that out over the next 4, 5, 6 years. That's cool, and I respect your character and your strength, but I don't understand why it's wise or prudent when you could have took half that and yielded the 40,000. So let me kind of calmly rein this back in. So those are some of the reasons that people stay fully invested. But here's where I still pause. If you already have enough, not trying to win the game, not trying to double your lifestyle, is maximizing upside really worth carrying the emotional and sequence of returns risk? Or is part of retirement about removing stress and not optimizing spreadsheets? So there is, I will say, I know that I did not do a good job of playing the middle ground. Clearly you can see which way I tend to lean. But there is no universal right answer, okay? And markets, as always, are very unpredictable. So it could be a tremendous decision. I think that good decisions generally don't guarantee good outcomes. So you can be prudent, you can be smart, and not always get a good outcome. I think in this case, when you're talking about retirement planning, if you're playing the middle and we're dividing the $1 million and we're putting half into guaranteed income, which is guaranteed, and you're letting the rest ride, it's really hard to not get a good outcome. Whereas leaving $1 million at risk, leaving everything at risk for growth and to hedge inflation, and you're yielding half of what you could, to me, it's just unnecessary risk. To me, genuinely, it's just putting yourself in harm's way when you don't need to. So the mistake I see most often isn't choosing growth or guarantees. It's never actually asking the question. So hopefully this is informative and gets people thinking, hey, which of these make more sense to me, right? There will be people who think totally different than me, and there will be people who kind of align with what I'm saying. Questions asked, this is the core. If you're, planning for retirement, approaching, here's some core questions. What are you trying to protect? What are you trying to enjoy? And how much risk do you still want to carry once work is optional? That's the real retirement decision. So, hope this was helpful. I thought I would knock this out in a little quicker than 33 minutes, but hope it was helpful. We covered a lot of ground, a couple different opposing arguments against guarantees, against personal pension type planning, but hope it was helpful. If you have questions, comments, even if you have emotionally charged comments that you want to leave, I'm open to that. Have a blessed day. Get prepared for the snow. We're expecting apparently a big storm Saturday night, and I always feel like there's a lot more hype around these than they deserve, but this one's supposed to be big. So have a blessed day. If you want to know more about myself or what we do, you can go to kylestuder.com, do a little bit of research, and best place to connect is on Facebook. You can add me on my personal page. You can follow my business page, and we're putting up content that is aimed to educate and help people understand more of their options that are available with retirement planning, estate planning, Medicare, and life insurance. All right, bye-bye.